Welcome to Public Health Matters, where we talk about matters of public health. I'm Bobbie Bagley, Chief Public Health Official and Director for the City of Nashua's Division of Public Health and Community Services. And I'm here with Doria Brown, who is our Energy Manager, and we're going to talk about the Consumer Energy Program, as well as some other things that relate to how we can save money using the correct energy programs in the City of Nashua. So Doria, tell us a little bit more about what you do. And this is the month of April. So the first week of April, we celebrate Public Health Week. And on Wednesday, it was climate change. And so I thought it would be a very good idea for us to talk about energy and energy management by having you on Public Health Matters this week. And how apropos was it that we actually had a winter storm in the spring in April?
So hi, I'm Doria Brown. I am the Energy Manager for the city, and I am in the Sustainability Department. And thank you for having me here today, Bobbie. I'm excited to talk about Nashua's Community Power Program, which is turning 1 year old this month.
Is it?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And to talk about April as well, it is also Public Health Week, but April is also Earth Month for the city and for the country.
Correct.
And we've got a lot of cool things cooking up from the Sustainability Department this month. So I'm excited to talk about that.
So then there must be a lot to talk about. So first of all, it's the 1 year anniversary. What do you have planned to celebrate that? Is it going to be something that you're just doing in your office, or is it going to be something that we can all celebrate in this annual event?
So to celebrate our 1 year anniversary with Community Power, we're going to be sending out a newsletter in the middle of the month with some stats. But if it's okay, Bobbie, do you mind if I say some before the newsletter comes out?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay, I might be leaking information here.
We don't want to spoil the surprises.
I won't spoil all the surprises.
Okay.
But in the newsletter, it'll include the amount of money we've saved as a community since our launch. And it's about, I won't say the exact number, but it's over $6 million in community development and community benefit that we've received from our Community Power Program.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
6 million?
$6 million in community benefit from
So
Nashua
how does
Community
that
Power.
come back into, does it come back into sort of like the power grid to be used? Like, what does that mean that we've gotten $6 million in community benefit?
So I think it's important to start from the beginning, because I feel like some people might not know what community power is yet. Even though we're a year old, that's still pretty young. So Nashua Community Power is our program in which we negotiate for electricity rates for the entire community. Okay. So when we launched Community Power, we drove the electric rate from the utility rate from, I believe it was 15 cents a kilowatt hour to 12 cents a kilowatt hour.
Nice.
And then we drove it down to 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And now we're currently sitting at 8.1 cents a kilowatt hour. So community benefit is the savings that we received in comparison to the utility rate, plus the amount of money we've been able to accumulate in reserve funds as a community from having this program. Okay. So a reserve fund is our fund that we set aside to help with energy rates. So a few years ago, we saw electricity prices skyrocket because of a multitude of different things. There was conflict outside of the country. We had some issues with natural gas internally here and the prices. So that raised the price of electricity significantly. I believe the rate went from 1 month, it was 9 cents a kilowatt hour in 2022. And then it went up to 22 cents a kilowatt hour.
That's a huge
That was
increase.
a huge hike. And it made a lot of people pay attention to energy. So when that hike happened, there was no padding or reserve fund to help kind of make that easier for people. Right. So our reserve fund allows us to put some of that money we set aside into the pool to make rates increases less painful. And it also in the future will allow us to do special projects. So there is a point that we have to hit in our program called operating days. So if we have, I don't remember what the exact number is, but X amount of operating days in our reserve fund, then we start accumulating for special projects. Okay. So that will include being able to offer rebates for energy efficiency projects. That's residential and small businesses. We might even be able to invest in more renewable energy that the community owns to put that energy right back into our pool for community power and then further drive down that energy rate. Because when you own the energy, it's the cheapest.
Right, that is awesome. So how does that affect the end user? So for instance, they go and they read there's the meter, on the house or on the dwelling, and then by how many kilowatt hours are spent, there's an energy rate there. So everyone in Nashua is benefiting from this right now?
So everybody in Nashua can benefit from this right now if they choose. So the way that the program works is that it's an opt-out program. So we are currently the default rate for electric supply. So if you are a resident in Nashua, you got a mailer last year, or if you recently moved here in the last couple of months saying, hey, this is Nashua Community Power, this is the current rate. If you would like to opt out of this rate, please call this number. But if you already had a third-party supplier at that time, you were not automatically enrolled into the program, so you didn't have to opt out. And if you were net metering, so if you have solar on your home or something like that, we aren't able to service those accounts right now because of some barriers put in place by the utility that we're trying to work through, and they're trying to work with us. But we aren't able to serve net metered customers or people with solar right now, so they aren't currently on the Nashua Community Power rate. But if you are not any of those things and you did not opt out of the rate, you are automatically enrolled. And if you moved to Nashua recently, so in the last 3 months, and you didn't get a notice yet, note that you would get a notice every quarter. So quarterly, we see who all the new accounts are, and then we send out those notices, and then they get enrolled in the community power rate. So you might be on the utility rate for just a little while, and then you have that opportunity to enroll and opt out if you would like to.
So Doria, help me understand. So in multi-dwelling units, then, where you have apartments, does it go by the unit, or does it go by the entire structure?
So that depends. So if you are getting an electric bill directly to you from the utility, that means your unit has its own meter. So that means you are your own customer, and that meter would be automatically enrolled in our program. But if you live in a building where your landlord is paying the electric bill, and then you're paying your energy through your rent, you might not have been automatically enrolled. Your landlord could have a third-party supplier, or something else could be the case if there's solar panels on the building.
Right.
So the short answer is, if you have your own energy bill that's coming in from Eversource, yes, you would automatically be enrolled. But if you don't and you're paying through your rent, I'm not too sure. I would have to talk to your landlord and find out.
Right, yeah, and I think that's a good question for landlords or property owners to get the answer to. So if they can switch over and take advantage of a lower energy rate, they probably should do that.
Yeah, and there's also other opportunities. As the energy manager, I think it's important to show that anybody can take advantage of our market here in New Hampshire. We have the ISO New England market, and people can actually purchase power supply on their own outside of our default rate that we're providing for Nashua Community Power. And there's people that do that. So that's also an option. But you have to be very aware of how the energy market works, and read your contract. So there have been some instances where people negotiate for their own power supply and they didn't read their contract all the way through. So at contract expiration, they didn't realize they had to give 60 days notice that they no longer wanted to get supply from that person anymore. And then that supplier was able to increase their rate significantly without them knowing, and then they had to give 16 days notice, so they had 60 days where they were at this higher electric rate. So it's something to note that once you get into an electric contract that you're negotiating on your own, you're responsible for managing that.
You have to pay attention, read the fine print, and pay attention to all of the information.
Yes.
So you said that anyone in the state of New Hampshire can benefit from this. So in our region, we've got like the 12 surrounding towns, and then there's other towns. Like I live outside of Nashua, and so if I knew about this program, I could opt in and sign into it, because it's not an automatic for me to be a part of it.
So I wouldn't say that's 100% accurate.
Okay.
If your community has an aggregation program, you can enroll in their program, but they would have to be working with the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, which is who we're working with, or another third-party supplier who's helping do these community power programs. But if your community isn't taking advantage of that, then you would not have the opportunity to enroll in a community power program, but you can negotiate your own electric supply. You just have to look out for those contracts.
Right. And read the fine print.
Yes, absolutely.
So there's some other things that are happening in Doria's energy management land. Tell us more.
So energy is a great field to be in, and the energy manager position is under the sustainability department, and it is Earth Month, so we're working on quite a few different things. We currently have a draft sustainability plan that has been written that does have some energy sections, including, I think it's clean energy and efficient buildings, and then another section called transportation, where we're talking about our transition to some alternative fuel vehicles. So I'm excited for that to get in front of the Board of Aldermen next week, actually, and just get some eyes on the plan and some excitement around it. We're also hosting a sustainability fair this month. It's on April 20th. It goes from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and we'll have all sorts of great things. A main stage that will have some presenters, a dam tour at our hydroelectric facility. We'll have an electric car show, a food truck, and a ton of tables coming, including the state who's sending a table for soil testing. So you can collect your own soil sample at home and then bring it to the sustainability fair, and the state will collect it and do soil testing for you so you can see if you have any lead or anything like that in your soil. And I'm super excited about that.
So where will this be?
This will be at the library in the front area. I think it's called the library courtyard. So if you head over to the library, it'll be right in front of your face. And if you miss it, I don't know, put some glasses on. It's right there.
So it'll be right there. So it will be outdoors.
Yes.
So what about the weather? So it's rain or shine event. Will it be moved indoors? It'll
Yes.
be on this day, and it'll be indoors if it's raining. But if the weather holds up, it will be outside.
Yes. So to rain or shine, it'll be scaled down just a little bit if it's put indoors, as it has to be. But hopefully the sun will shine on us, and our bad weather will be gone by then,
Well, I
and
know
we'll have
next
a
week
nice
it's
event.
supposed to be better. So the temperatures are
Yep.
supposed to go back up until the 40s, 50s next
Cross my
week
fingers.
in the month of April. But we just will never know with these weather events because, again, of how the climate is changing. The warmer the earth gets, we have these changes with our climate and these fluxes. Can you talk with us a little bit about that? So as the energy manager, and probably in some of your educational training, there has been some focus on the impact or the effects of the weather patterns, on the earth, and even how we generate certain amounts of energy, that are going up into the stratosphere.
Yeah. So I've lived in New Hampshire for quite some time now. I moved here when I studied environmental science in college at Franklin Pierce University, and I do have to say I have not experienced a winter like I experienced in 2012 since then. Winters have been becoming more and more mild. This winter, even though we did just have a snowstorm in April, has been extremely mild, and people can sometimes look and say, oh, well, we had snow in April. Climate change isn't real. We're still getting snow in New England, but that's just not the case. We've experienced a lot less snowfall than we have in the past, and we're going to continue to potentially experiencing that. I also want people to note that it is an El Nino year, so this kind of mild temperature and mild environment kind of persists a little bit extra because we're in El Nino. So that's something to note as well, but it's just further, I think, magnifying an issue that we've been experiencing.
Right. And so for this month of April, we definitely want people to be aware of how we can protect and preserve, the earth. So we in public health, which is inclusive, in public health that involves physical health, mental health. It also involves our natural environment as well.
Yeah.
And so the theme for Public Health Week is preserving and protecting, but it's also about connecting and thriving. And, the big overarching view that we want people to see is that we all are a part of public health,
Yes,
which
we are.
includes our earth environment, as well. So this whole conversation around energy consumption and energy saving is very, very important. And Nashua is really fortunate to have an energy manager. Are there other towns that have energy managers, or are you the only one in New Hampshire?
So there's nuance to that question. I don't want to say we're the only town with an energy manager, but I think we can say that we're the only town that has a person that's solely, their role is solely energy for their community. There's other people who are doing energy work, but also have other things tacked onto their job.
Right.
They might be doing facilities management. They might be doing planning or something like that. So there are communities that are taking this seriously and designating energy to be a part of an employee's role. And all the people that I've met in this field in New Hampshire that are doing similar things to myself are doing great work. It's
awesome.
exciting to talk to them and to just throw out different ideas and see how maybe we can work together. And I think our Community Power program and starting the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire with all these other communities is a great example of that.
Yeah, and that's actually really good. And it's important because, in our little small state of New Hampshire, this little corner of the market, that we have, we actually experienced a part of that earthquake that hit New Jersey, which is at least, I don't know all the miles. It has to be over 312 miles away.
Yes.
But we actually felt a little bit of that shock of that earthquake up here in New Hampshire. And so, again, these are all the things that come with the changing, with the climate, and the earth, all changing, and things that we have to pay attention to. What are some really important things that you want our viewers to know about how we can continue to look at how we protect our earth? And as users or consumers, what are some other energy efficient things that we could be doing?
So I do want to backpedal a little bit to something you said earlier, and that was how public health is related to our environment, and it very much is. For example, as we're experiencing more extreme weather, we'll be experiencing more power outages, we'll be experiencing more flooding, more trees down. And what does that do? That adds to the stress of everyday life.
Right.
Yeah. If you're worried about that every single day, you have less time to focus on other parts of your health. And being in that state of stress just isn't healthy.
It's not.
No, it's not. So I think that it's important to note that the environment around us affects our health more than just pollution that we might be breathing or something like that. Just the everyday stress that we might be experiencing, I think is important to note when we talk about the environment and protecting it. So as for what people can do, so I think people can, I think thinking about our impact has been kind of a hard thing to do. We've created a society in which consumerism is very much ingrained in it. It's hard to live a zero waste lifestyle. It's hard to use no electricity and have no impact. But it's very much easy to view that and then feel extremely bad that those things are happening. So I think it's important to note that we need to make big changes in our society in order to have this better environment that we're seeking. And it's not just these individual changes that we need to make. I think it's how we run our communities. If we have alternative transportation available, I think it's supporting those types of things that really makes a difference. Supporting your local government and the things that they're working on, I think is very important.
So you mentioned some of the things that you're doing as far as like even with the electric vehicles and things of that nature, or at least trying to increase with the electric grid and all. Are we going to start increasing more opportunities for people with electric vehicles to have a place to plug them in the city? Yes,
we are. We're currently working on that and adding, I think, 4 new charging stations right outside of the Elm Street parking garage. We haven't picked a vendor for that yet, so I can't say too much about it, but there'll be level 2 charging stations.
But we know that there's changes coming.
Yes,
Again,
we're adding more
energy,
chargers.
yes.
Yep. And then we have been looking into fast chargers and how they might be adaptable inside of our garages or in our parking lots to make it more accessible to people.
Now, does it make sense Doria, to have, so we have one electric vehicle, and then my car is not quite a hybrid, but it does turn off. And then having hybrids, do all of these things, because you said we need to think about how we make a bigger impact. And so we know energy consumption is really important, how much pollution, if we want to call it pollution, that we're putting out. And there are ways that we can reduce that. So the electric vehicles are one. You talked about the solar panels, that's another. Do the hybrid cars help? Because some people may not have the capacity, because when you get the electric vehicle, you have to get the thing mounted in your garage and do all that kind of stuff like that, which we were able to do. But some folks may not have the capacity to do those things. Does it make a difference when you have a hybrid vehicle, or the vehicles that shut off so they're not pushing out pollutants while we're just sitting in traffic? Do all of those things make a difference?
So I think it's important to note that sustainability isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. An electric vehicle might be a great solution for one family or one application for a city vehicle, whereas a hybrid electric vehicle may make a lot more sense for another family or another application in the city. I think it's important to look at what you're doing, how far you're going in your vehicle, how often the vehicle's being used, and making a decision off of that factor. For example, in the city, we have some vehicles that have no downtime. There's absolutely no time for those vehicles to charge. So maybe a hybrid solution is the best option for that vehicle right now, because we'd have to buy 2 vehicles in order to replace the one if it was fully electric. So that's important to note. So I just think that just evaluate what's best for you. And yeah, one solution isn't better than the other if that other solution really just isn't going to work for you.
Yeah. So there's something that we can all do to play a part in how we use our energy. Let's talk a little bit about water too, right? And so you talked about flooding. That with this, and water is important. So we didn't have as much snow during the winter, which means there's going to be a decreased amount of water in the table that could result in a drought. So as probably not happy as people may have been for the snow that we got over the past day and a half, we actually do need that extra water or moisture in the ground, right, to prevent the ground from being too dry, or to prevent droughts and all. But we also have, since we've had so much rain, there are areas where we have a lot of extra water or flooding. So in situations like that, what else do we need to be looking at? The weather, the mold, the floods. What other precautions do people need to put in place with those types of situations?
I think it's important to just take a look at where you live. Has water been getting into your basement more often? Maybe you invest in a sub pump. It's hard to tell people what to do, especially when maybe they were in a spot that was dry before and now it's not.
Right.
And I really sympathize with that, especially coming from Little Falls, New Jersey, where we lived in a place that didn't flood, and then suddenly it was flooding every year. So it's hard to say what the best thing to do is, especially coming from my position as an energy manager and not someone in that emergency management or water field like Emily or Deb Chisholm and
so
from
hopefully
the city
we'll
would
have
be.
one of the two of them on, upcoming.
Recommended
for this
next
month.
guest.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because of the response. And again, what do members in the community need to know, about how you're prepared for those types of things, those natural hazards? Because as the climate continues to change, you said that we're in Nino season. That, to me, when you say Nino, that reminds me of storms, floods, hurricanes, and all of those things. And so how do we, prepare ourselves for that? But again, there are things that we could do as consumers, on this earth, to protect the earth from all of those variations of changes. And it'll take a number of years of changing in our behavior before we start to see the writing. And when I say writing, RIGHTING, of some of the impact that we as humans have put on the earth to why we see these changes occurring right now.
Yeah, and we've seen that. And when we had COVID, remember that? I bet you do.
I remember that.
Yeah.
How can we forget COVID?
I don't know. when we had COVID, there were some instances of less commuting in areas. And then they saw the air clear up. They saw some marine life return to some areas. Yeah. So there is opportunity for writing We just have to be able to change the way we operate as a society to do that.
Yeah, and it shouldn't take a pandemic. See, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It took a pandemic to shut things down, where people were sort of forced, to not do certain things. And so maybe some of the things that we could try to encourage is some, habits. I know that, where people have the opportunity to do more work from home, which means that they will be less traveling or less out, on the roads driving and all. But I think you're right. There are probably some strategies that we need to think about how we reduce our imprint by pretending we're in pandemic mode, and shutting certain things down. Because I actually do remember reading about how, there was an increase in the marine life, and there was also sort of almost like this relief because we weren't using every single part of the earth, where you saw more green stuff, more animals came out, and it was like, oh, the humans aren't here, right? And so we probably do need to think of strategic ways of changing some of our behaviors that aren't the result of something else bad that happened, like a pandemic or a big flood. Just creating the space and time for, let's just let our earth breathe.
Yep. And also just being prepared for what happens when you let Earth breathe a little bit. We are going to experience some extreme weather. For example, what happened in Vermont last year, they had some major flooding.
They did.
And Emily, our emergency manager, was telling me that if that had just been a little bit further south or something, that would have been us in New Hampshire.
It could still be us,
and it's only a matter of time
right.
before something like that happens here, especially as we're experiencing more extreme weather. So I think accepting that that's happening and really investing in emergency preparedness, I think, is important, because it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
I hate to leave it on a negative note, but I think it's important
but I think,
too.
you know what it is? It's maybe not so much negative as it is creating that awareness that people need to have.
Yeah.
And that mindfulness that if we don't change certain behaviors, that there are things that result from that. And then just because these things have got us to the place where we are right now, to have that expectation that these are things that can also play a part that are going to impact our lives. And, you mentioned the whole piece around the physical and the mental health and how it's all connected. So it does give us an opportunity to think differently about how we interact, with our earth, how we interact with how we use our energy, and how we think about what changes we can make right now, even though you might not see the full impact of that for years to come, and maybe even a generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good to have you here with us. And our last 15 seconds, what would you like to leave with the viewers?
Yep. Come to the Sustainability Fair. I promise it will be more positive than the ending there. And I'll send it back to you, Bobbie.
Awesome. Doria, thank you so much for being here and helping us understand more about community power, how we can sign up for that. And if there's information that you need, just contact Doria Brown. And Doria, what is your email?
My email is brownd@nashuanh.gov.
And your phone number?
I do not remember that one off the top of my head, and I will not be giving my cell phone. So there you go.
Can reach Doria via email. You can always go on the city's website as well, www.nashuanh.gov. And then do they just click on energy?
If you go on the environment and energy page, that email will take you to me too.
As well. So that is great. I'm Bobbie Bagley, reminding you to have a great day today and a better day tomorrow. And we'll see you the next time on Public Health Matters.